Anthony Breznican has released a new article about the future of Star Wars television and film for Vanity Fair. Inside are several details about the upcoming series set in the galaxy far, far away, and I'm going to go over everything that jumped out at me. Let's start with Obi-Wan Kenobi because there wasn't a whole lot of new information to learn, but what I enjoyed reading was that when production was paused in early 2020, it sounds like that was to rewrite the scripts around the inclusion of Darth Vader and therefore Hayden Christensen. Bringing the character back was a subject of debate, wondering how it would ripple out into the way fans viewed the original trilogy. And yeah, fans have raised that question a lot. Of course we're excited to see Vader again, but in the back of our minds, we can't help but think about how his interactions with Obi-Wan on the Death Star made it seem like they hadn't seen each other since Mustafar. I'm not surprised at all, but I'm still glad to know the series creators had those thoughts as well, and I figure this means it'll be addressed in some way, so we can set those thoughts aside and just enjoy the story. Next up, let's just mention The Mandalorian Season 3 because, again, we don't learn much. We know a lot about that series already, so that's fine. Breznican mentions it will be released in late 2022 or early 2023. That makes sense, following the same basic timetable as the Book of Boba Fett. I think December 28th is a safe bet. But let's talk about some stuff we don't know as much about. Andor finally gets quite a bit of attention in this article, telling us more about the series than I think we have ever known before. It'll premiere in late summer 2022, so probably late August or early September. Tony Gilroy and Diego Luna both describe the show as a refugee story. Cassian loses his homeworld at the start, and then we follow him into adulthood, where we see him as a self-serving nihilist. Over the course of the whole show, which right now is rumored to be 3 seasons long, we will learn how Cassian goes from believing in nothing to joining the Rebel Alliance and ultimately sacrificing his life for it. My one reservation about this idea is that it sounds a lot like Han Solo in A New Hope, but since it'll be a much more gradual story, I think it'll be easy to differentiate the character arcs. I also think we'll have a chance to see the darker and maybe more manipulative side of the rebellion. We know Cassian has done terrible things for the Alliance, he said so himself. We could see a character like Saw Gerrera from Rogue One maybe using Andor's nihilism to their benefit until he starts to veer away from the extremist side of the war. That would lead him to Mon Mothma, who is pictured in the article, and I gotta say, she's looking great. It's so nice to see the character wearing something besides just a giant white sheet. But moving on, let's talk about Ahsoka. We aren't given a more firm release date than 2023, which we already basically knew or could have guessed since it just entered production. Ewan McGregor casually said that Mary Elizabeth Winstead would be in the series, which was already stated by The Hollywood Reporter, but hadn't been confirmed by any official source until now. Details on Ahsoka were pretty sparse, but Dave Filoni did say that it will tell a continuous story driving towards a goal as opposed to being little singular adventures. I don't want to read into that too much, but I wonder if he's saying the series will be more serialized than The Mandalorian. I think fans were taken aback by the episodic structure of The Mandalorian's first season. I know I was, but its second season and The Book of Boba Fett seemed to lean more into serialized storytelling. So maybe Filoni is saying Ahsoka will continue down that path. The series I was most excited to hear more about is The Acolyte. Again, we aren't told much, not even a release year, but the series is currently in the casting phase and the scripts are mostly complete. Showrunner Leslie Headland says the series is a mystery thriller set 100 years before The Phantom Menace during the High Republic era. Her descriptions of Jedi wearing gold and white uniforms very much line up with what we've seen already from the Jedi of that time. I am thrilled to know we are going to be firmly set within the High Republic. The story was always said to take place at the tail end of that era, and I took that to mean it would technically be a High Republic story, but figured it would match an aesthetic that most fans are familiar with. 100 years in the past is farther than I would have guessed, and I cannot wait to see those gold and white robes on screen. The books and the comics have mostly taken place about 200 years in the past, so this series is still leaving them plenty of room to breathe, and I love the description of a mystery thriller during this time. First of all, the High Republic comic Trail of Shadows falls within that same genre and is one of the best Star Wars comics I have ever read. But Headland talks about wanting to answer questions like, how did we get to a point where a Sith Lord can infiltrate the Senate and none of the Jedi pick up on it? I would love to see a cat and mouse style story where maybe the Jedi almost learn about the Sith, and whoever the master and apprentice of that time are have to remain hidden. I don't want to speculate too much, but everything about the Acolyte sounds fantastic to me. And it's a good thing it seems to be so firmly within the High Republic era, because we learned today that the upcoming series codenamed Grammar Rodeo is not. We've heard rumors of this series for a while now, and it was always said to be a High Republic show as well, but it's actually going to take place after Return of the Jedi alongside The Mandalorian and the rest of those shows. We don't have plot details or a release schedule or anything else to go off of, but casting is currently looking for 4 children aged 11 to 12, and the show is being described as a Star Wars version of classic Amblin coming-of-age adventure films of the 80s, like E.T. or The Goonies. Rumors have called this series Stranger Things in Space, so that all lines up. When we first started hearing whispers about Grammar Rodeo, I was skeptical, but I do love Stranger Things, and the idea of getting to potentially go on a multi-season adventure with some kids as they grow up and, I don't know, join Luke's Jedi Academy or something, that does sound exciting. It follows the same format that Star Wars animation always has. Introduce a young character like Ahsoka or Ezra, then the audience grows up with them. I would like to see that in live action. Finally, Breznican had a little bit to say about the future of Star Wars films. Taika Waititi's movie is likely the next on the horizon. Rogue Squadron is further off. When asked about Kevin Feige's movie, Kathleen Kennedy was cagey in her response, saying she would love to see what he might come up with. And we finally got some official confirmation that Rian Johnson's trilogy is on the back burner. Again, none of this is surprising, except for the Feige stuff. Michael Waldron straight up said like a week ago that he is actively writing that script right now. So I think they're just not ready to share any official details, or maybe this interview happened before Waldron made that statement. There's still currently a Star Wars film slated for 2023. Maybe they're going to move that, maybe that'll be Taika's movie, maybe we'll find out next week at Star Wars Celebration. I'm personally thrilled to hear that Rogue Squadron is still floating around there somewhere. I might be one of the few that desperately want that movie, but I am going to continue desperately wanting it until we get some official word that it's canceled. So for today, I'm pleased to hear that it's still going on. And then there's that little mention of Rian Johnson's trilogy. That's not surprising at all. We haven't heard much about it in the past 5 years. I think Lucasfilm is still leaving that door open, but like the article says, Rian signed a multi-film deal with Netflix and he's busy with that. I'm okay with it. The Last Jedi was just fine to me. I don't fanatically love it. I definitely don't hate it either. I really do think Johnson could make a great trilogy, and I'd love to see what he could do free from the Skywalker saga. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'll watch the Knives Out sequels, because Knives Out is awesome. But that brings us to the end of the article. I'll link to it down in the description if you want to read it for yourself. If there was something that jumped out at you that I didn't mention, bring it up in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.